What's going on? It's James with Warhammer Fantasy, and I got another video. I told you guys I was going to do this. I'm just going to do it in a separate video. I'll probably post this tomorrow because I just did a video and I don't want to overload you guys with one day in videos. Anyways, guys, I'm going over the Orc and Goblin book. I do not own a physical copy of it because it did not come in yet, but I'm going over what I have on a PDF for Ravening Hordes. And you know what? I'm an Orc and Goblin guy. Those of you who don't know me, I am an Orc and Goblin guy. That's all I do is Orcs and Goblins. That's all I give a rat's ass about is Orcs and Goblins. If you play D&D with me, I'm an Orc. I'm half Orc. I don't care. Anyways, so first of all, the Grand Army composition list. There's a couple things that's going on. I know there's a poll, honestly, right on the other side of my Facebook right here, that they're asking for a local tournament or tournament in Ohio if they should do 2,500 points or 2,000 points or 1999 points. For those of you who don't know, the 1999, it goes into the fact that it says very specifically in everybody's army book that you could get one character, one lord level character, one war boss, one king, one whatever it is, high elf lord, for 1,000 points. And it's going to limit how many people are bringing double lords, more or less, like a level 4 or 2 level 4 wizards, or 2 killy lords, 2 blender lords. So that is something to think about. With a 2,000 point list or 2,500 point list, you'll be able to bring 2. So that is one of the reasons why people are just kind of like going towards the 2,000 or the 1999. Second of all, the 2,000 points, just for the record, I know immediately I started a list with 2,000 points. Phil did the same thing, and we talked about it, and we looked at the lists. I mentioned Phil a lot. Phil's my friend. All right, but what the thing is, with a 2,000 point list, it looks real small compared to other game systems, and it feels small. It feels small, but I think 2,500 points is probably the what it's going to eventually get to. I don't think tournaments right now will be there because of how new Old World is, especially in the States. So I think that you're going to see a lot of people who are just going to be playing 2,000 point games. A lot of tournaments are going to be 2,000 point games for a while, and then eventually it'll go to 2,500 points when people want to bring out more miniatures. All right. The core, characters, you got Blackwork War Boss, Orc War Boss, Orc Shaman, which is a weird knob, but that's a level 3 and level 4. You got the hero levels, Blackwork Boss, Orc Shaman, weird boy. Then you got your Goblin Bosses, Goblin Shamans, Night Goblin Bosses, and Night Goblin Shamans. All those are in the characters. Core, you got Orc Goblins, the mob units. You got Snotlings, Goblin Spider Riders, Goblin Wolf Riders. Then you have 0 to 1 Night Goblin mobs per chief or shaman, and then you also have the same for Night Goblin squig herds per Night Goblin chief or shaman. If your general is a Black Orc, you get a Black Orc in your core, 1 unit of Black Orc in your core. For special, you have your Black Orcs, you have your trolls, Orc boar boy, Orc boar chariots, Goblin wolf chariots, and Snotling pump wagons. You also have your Night Goblin squig herd. These are the Night Goblin squig hoppers. These are the ones that jump around. And then you have your Goblin bolt throwers in special. Rare, it takes it to if you want to do a monster mash, or if you want to do mix armed, or if you want to do artillery, because you have your doom divers, your rock lobbers, your giants, your arachnarocks, your mangler squigs all in there. Now, one thing I noticed in the mangler squig, I didn't notice it till recently because I played with the mangler squig in I think all 3 games, is you have to have a Night Goblin Shaman or Chief in your list. Okay, so there's a restriction on the mangler squigs, and you only get 1 squig per chief. So I think you would be able to take 2 if you have 2 shamans. Interesting. Anyways, or 2 chiefs. Either way. I mean, chiefs are cheap. All right. You also have mercenaries, and I think mercenaries is a very interesting thing because it could cover up one of the weaknesses in the army. I don't really think many tournaments are going to enforce mercenaries, but it is a cool option. I remember as a kid when I had the Warhammer book, I bought a giant box set when I was way too young, and I wasn't even playing the game. I just wanted the miniatures. I just wanted the Orcs and Goblins, and I probably have most of them probably still here in gray sprues I'm gonna knock over everything here. But I probably still have them in gray sprues here from that box set. but anyways, I remember reading that you could get mercenaries, and I always thought that, like, I love certain miniatures from other ranges. It would be cool to play those miniatures in your army. Allies here, it says specifically Tomb Kings and Beastmen. Interesting. Suspicious allies. Anyways, but it would be interesting to see some tournaments, and I think I would run it in, because I'm probably going to run the tournaments in Dice Dojo. Probably run it where you could run some mercenary and allies and see what happens. See what happens there. Anyways, let's go over the list, and this is going to be not a quick review. It's going to be a while, but I got some time before I got to get back to work. All right, so first off, Black Orc Bosses. This is the quintessential Orc Killy Lord. You have both the War Boss and the Big Boss on the same page. The cool thing is it has its own rules. It has Choppas, it has the Boys, Furious Charge, Ignore Panic, Quell Impetuosity, Rallying Cry, and WAAAGHH. Okay. The first few things I noticed is, first of all, it's a Leadership 9 character, which is great. It's great to have a Leadership 9 Orc General in the army. I don't think the Goblins get Leadership 9. I'm looking. No, they go to Leadership 7. So if you want a good base for your leadership, that's where you go. You get a Black Orc General. Even the Orc Generals are Leadership 8. So Black Orc Boss is where it's at. Second off, you could kind of mix and match if you want different weapons. You have great weapons, cavalry spears, hand weapons, depending on what kind of mount you're going to put them on or what kind of armor kit you're going to put them on. Great weapon, he has such a good agility. I think it's a travesty to put him with great weapon. Great weapon will knock him down to agility 1. His initiative is 6. Okay, so that 6 initiative is huge. You get a charge off your initiative 9. That's incredible. That is incredible. You could take several mounts. You could take a boar chariot, or a wyvern. All right, so the Choppa's rules allows you to re-roll ones to wound. So you get 10 hits. You roll, or 10. Let's say the Black Orc Boss. You get 3 hits, but 1 miss, and then you go ahead and you go roll them, and you roll 1, 1, 1. You're like, son of a bitch. You got to re-roll those, unless you have a magical weapon. Okay, Choppa's does not work if you have a magical weapon. The Boys, I'm gonna have to look that part up. The Furious Charge is another rule I missed. Furious Charge is very specific. If you charged, you're getting an extra attack. So your Black Orc Black Orc War Boss gets 5 attacks, whereas your Big Boss gets 4 attacks if you charged. Ignore Panic is very self-explanatory. Quell Impetuosity helps you if you're kind of like how I work with this is Impetuosity is you roll a dice on a 4, 5, or 6. Your guys decide to go charge ahead, even if you didn't want them to, but it has to be in the front arc. Basically, you roll the dice, but if you have a Black Orc unit or Black Orc Boss nearby, you could just quell it, and it doesn't happen. Rallying Cry is another one that I missed. Rallying Cry allows you to tell a nearby panicking unit to rally. If they fail to rally, they get to roll on their normal leadership check anyways. So they get 2 rally checks, basically. One for the Lord being there and one for themselves trying to rally from a fleet. The WAAAGHH, we'll go over the WAAAGHH later when I get to the lower section. Orc Bosses, Orc Big Bosses, War Bosses. These are another Orc type of general you could take that's not a Black Orc Boss. The Black Orc Boss is 135 in points, whereas the Orc War Boss is 110 points. So it's basically a 25-point difference. You have, you have basically the same weapons, great weapons, hand weapons. The weapon skill is 1 lower on the Orc War Boss. Toughness is the same, strength is the same, initiative is 1 lower, and then 1 less leadership. So you're getting a little bit like, you basically got your Orc General from Wish. All right. You could take heavy armor. The Black Orc also gets plate armor. The Orc War Boss gets heavy armor, but you can also get light armor. You can optionally take an Orc War Boss and drop the armor for Frenzy. Okay, so I think you only get light armor and frenzy, and they give you the light armor option just because there's some magical armor you can wear that's light armor, and you would still have the frenzy and war paint rule. The war paint, I think, very specifically might say you cannot wear armor, but I'll see that in a second. Again, you get the same mounts. It doesn't really change any. You get the same rules. You get Choppa's Furious Charge, Ignore Goblin Panic, Impetuous, Rallying Cry, WAAAGHH, and Warband. Okay. Let's see what Warband says. Oh, interesting. That is really interesting. Warband states that you're going to basically get a +1 to the modifier of your leadership per rank in a unit. So being a leader in a warband, you could actually push yourself to leadership 10. That's actually pretty impressive. That's cool. Did not know that. Just found out. No more you know. Orc Shamans, you got your Orc Weird Knobs and your Orc Weird Boys. The Weird Knob is the level 3 or level 4. You got Battle Magic, Elementalism, and WAAAGHH Magic. I'm not going to lie, I spent a lot of time about 2 days ago looking at the magic, trying to figure out what is best for the Orc or Goblin Shaman. WAAAGHH Magic is very well-rounded. It is very well-rounded. You got a lot of buff spells. You have a lot of, especially with the Orc Shaman, the reason you would take an Orc Shaman versus a Goblin Shaman is the signature spells, more or less, or if you want to get the Mangler Squig or a Night Goblin Herd. But the Orc Shaman signature spells are very damaging. There's the Gaze of Gork, and then there's also a, I think, Vindictive Glare, and both of those are extremely good damaging spells for signature spells. But they also have Battle Magic and Elementalism. Elementalism gives you a lot of defensive buffs, I noticed, and it's good with like getting fire damage out there. Battle Magic the same. You get a fireball in the first spell. They're actually all really good lores. I did not like Elementalism as much due to short ranges. It only has ranges of 15 inches on most things. So yeah. All right. You have again, you could be mounted, and I think you could have pretty much any mount for an Orc Shaman as well. Chariot, Boar, or Wyvern. I'm going to double check that on the Wyvern, but we'll see that when we get to the mounts. The leadership, you're still getting a leadership 8 on a level 4, but you're getting leadership 7 on a lower level wizard. It might not matter. It does have the warband rule. So the warband rule, if you put an orc, just say in a unit of archers, and you have the archer sitting back, and you have like 2 ranks in the archer unit, you would have a leadership 9 shaman, more or less. Or 10, you know what I mean, if you want to give it more ranks. So it's an interesting way to beef up the leadership on one of these units. I just noticed it right now. Basically, still ignore Goblin Panic, Mob Rules, Warband. What the hell is Mob Rules, man? These are new rules I'm not even knowing. It doesn't say on here. Okay. It's probably in this book. All right. Goblin bosses. These are your regular common goblins or forest goblins, if you wish. The common goblins, all goblins have fear elves. All right. They are all impetuous. They have the rallying cry and warband. The goblin war bosses do still have 4 attacks. They are strength 4 base, tough 4, and they are initiative 5. Okay. They are relatively cheap for what they can do, especially in Hero Hammer, because you could probably put one on a wolf for relatively cheap, and just run out there with your 3 wounds, and your, a great weapon, or the one-hit wonder weapon, and just kind of like mess up somebody's day, more or less. So they could be cheap missiles. A Goblin Big Boss, same thing, the 35 points. They don't really have good leadership, and they probably will die to a sharp poke in the eye. But back in 8th edition game mechanics, they used to do a lot of, you would see where people would make a whole front line of Goblin bosses and just stick them with great weapons. And you would see a lot of people would try to like kill the unit because it's easier to kill the unit, but then you have all these goblin bosses just lining up with great weapons and just whacking somebody. So that is a very potential tactic that you may see come back. They also have mounts. The mounts, you got cave squig, cave spider, the wolf, and a smaller spider. You don't get, this is actually interesting to me, you don't get the big Ragnarok spider on for a lord. You get it for the wizard. You don't get it for the lord. That would make a very, very killy lord, though. Just saying. All right. Let's go ahead and go over the Goblin Shamans. Like I said, the Goblin Shamans, you do get the Spider Shrine if you do want it. The Spider Shrine does absolutely nothing for the wizard, other than you're taking the points out of the character points instead of the monster points. Goblin Shaman, you got an odd knob for 135, leadership 7, only 2 attacks, but obviously they're not there to attack, they're there to do the WAAAGHH magic, WAAAGHH, and elementalism. You could take them as a level 1 or 2 as a odd get, and basically, like I said, roughly the same thing. They don't get many much more magic. The interesting thing about Goblin Shamans, and this is why I took Goblin Shaman, is the way the book plays out, the way this set of rules plays out, is whoever swings first is going to kill that front row, and that front row won't be able to attack. And goblins have a signature spell that gives them Itchy Nuisance that lowers not only initiative, but also toughness, and that's an extremely valuable signature spell. So that signature spell more or less kind of gives the reason to take a Goblin Shaman. Now, you could take this on a Night Goblin Shaman and have the same exact options. The only difference is with the Night Goblin Shaman on the next page is you get Illusion Magic. That's 2 pages down. You get Illusion Magic instead of Elementalism. So that's it. That's the only difference. You do lose like 1 leadership, and then you also get like random things that Night Goblins get versus regular common goblins. All right, Night Goblin big bosses, they are lower in leadership. They get, it looks like 1 more attack. Nope, same amount of attacks, same amount of movement, same amount of weapon skill. I did notice that they have, especially for the goblin characters, they have a ballistic skill, but none of them have bows. There's no magical bows. There's no magical shooting anything. So goblins are just kind of SOL on that front. You could have a goblin archer unit, but the character in it just doesn't have anything to shoot. Anyways, they get the cave squigs as their mount. They don't get the other options. The common goblin gets the wolf or spider. All right. Night Goblin Shaman, same thing like I mentioned before. All right, character mounts, Blackwork Boss and Orc War Bosses could get war boars, boar chariots, and wyverns, like I mentioned. The Shaman doesn't get the chariot. Interesting. The Shaman only gets war boar and wyvern. And the wyvern only is allowed for the higher level Shaman. The Goblin War Boss or Big Boss can get wolf spiders or wolf chariots. Okay. And the spider is the gigantic spider. It's not even the small spider. So you have to go literally for the 50 mil based one. The Goblin Odd Knobs get the wolf, a wolf chariot, or the Ragnarok spider. And odd gets only get the wolf and the giant wolf chariot. The Night Goblins, War Bosses, get cave squigs. Done. All right. Now, the cool part about the character kits is chariots. The boar chariots, they do have additional crew, and I believe, from what I understand, the character on the top has a 360 line of sight for whatever reasons. You can't really charge behind you, but you could see behind you. And you could correct me if I'm wrong about the charging. But that's because it's a war platform for a character. The Ragnarok spider does have stubborn, so you would have a leadership 7 stubborn character on there that's going to be less likely to run away. Also, the spider itself is really devastating, and the spider does offer something that I thought was very interesting. It gives you poison attacks on all the regular attacks, and always strikes first venomous surge, and then the goblin crew on top of the spider on the howdah all have poison attacks. That includes their shooting and close combat attacks. So you're having quite a vast amount of attacks that you're going to get from the spider that are just poison, and I believe it even transfers to your character, your wizard on top. That being said, I think you're going to struggle with armor piercing with the spider. I don't think that it has much armor piercing. I'll get to the spider when I get there, though. Outside of that, the wyvern, same thing. It has a always strikes first attack, tail attack, but it's a blunt tail, I'm assuming, because that thing is AP 0. But it is poisonous. It does have wicked claws. The wicked claws are AP 2. It lacks an extra attack, I think. It only has 3 attacks, 1 with the tail, 2 with the claws, and I feel like it, honestly, every time I roll it, it's like 1 maybe does a wound, and I just think that the amount, outside of the benefits you get from the toughness and wound increase, it doesn't do much else. And flying, it does have fly 9, okay? I'm not saying it's a bad mount. It's a great mount. It's just, I think it lacks just 1 attack. 1 more attack. All right. The cave squig, it gives you 1 extra wound, so you're going to have 4 wounds on a squig. Same thing with this gigantic spider, is going to give you 4 wounds. The cave squig is strength 5. It does have armored hide, which is going to give you an extra armor save. Same thing with the spider. They're going to have, the spider does give you, again, the poison attacks, which is cool because it's going to give the character on top poison attacks. And that's just wonderful. The spider is fast cavalry. It is considered light cavalry on a 50 by 50 mil base, while the cave squig is not. But the cave squig does have hatred of dwarves and impact hits. All right. Cave squig, a little side note, it's a loner, so you cannot join a unit of basically anybody, really. You're just kind of out there on your own. As for speed, the cave squig is jumping 3d6 inches, so it could be great or it could be shit. It could be clutch sometimes because you could just turn around and chuck into somebody, but there's other times where you're just stumbling forward slowly and you're watching everybody run the other way. The gigantic spider, though, it is movement 7. The wolf and the wolf chariot are both 9, and the boar is 7. Okay, let's see. Blackwork Mob. Like I said, my list that I made so far, I made it where the Blackwork Mob has a is in core because I'm taking a Blackwork General, but the Blackwork Mob basically is going to have Choppas, Close Order, Du Bois, Fury's Charge, Ignore Panic, Motley Crew, and Quell Impetuosity. You can make them stubborn, okay, for 1 extra point per model. You can give them Veteran, which lets them allow them to reroll on a leadership check. Now, I vote against this on taking veterans on Black Orcs because you really don't need. It says very specifically, Veteran doesn't give you a reroll on a break check. So, what other leadership checks are you taking on this Black Orc Mob? I don't really see a point to taking them as a veteran. The additional hand weapon and great weapon, there's an interesting thing I noticed here because of Motley Crew. Because of what Motley Crew says in the rules, it basically says you could take a unit that has different... I know it's meant for... You could take them with like a squig and a squig handler, right? And the handler has a different weapon than the squig itself, so that's a Motley Crew. It's 2 different types of models. But because Black Orcs have the Motley Crew rule... having great weapons and additional hand weapons and shields allows you to just switch and swap what you're doing. So this half could attack this unit with a great weapon, but this half that's in the same combat is going to attack with extra hand weapons. And all you really have to do is tell your opponent that you're going to use this half with this and this half with that. So it could be a game changer there. And easy enough. Your champion, your boss, could have a shield and take an impact hit from something with a shield, so he has better armor save. Or he could just hold the shield just so he could have better armor save in a challenge. Besides that, Let's see. You have magic items, and I thought that the magic items are interesting, especially on a character or the champion. It's hard to justify the 25 points for a one moon model though, if you're giving them a cool weapon. But some of the weapons are just kind of fun. You could just have like a 5-point flaming sword or something like that. He would lose the chop of rules if he took any magical item, but it's still fun. The magic standards, you get a 50-point magic standard in that unit. I think it's a must take because the Orc and Goblin book has such great banners. All right, let's see. I'm going to go ahead and finish the core, and then I will go over the rares and stuff in a different video because I actually have to get to work very soon. I just recognize the time, but I'll be getting you guys that very shortly. All right, Orc mobs. This is the regular mobs. Real quick, going back to Blackwork mobs. The Blackwork mobs are weapon skill 4. You could take a banner to get them to weapon skill 5. They're only strength 4 though. You cannot upgrade these to biggins, so strength 4 is their base, but again, if you're taking great weapons, you could get them to strength 6, not a problem. Tough 4, a 3-up armor if you took the shield, because they have plate armor, and leadership 8. They're a very solid unit. With the Furious Charge rule, they're getting that extra attack on the charge. And then with the Choppers rule, they're getting to reroll their 1s, which is really good. So it's a very solid unit. The only thing is the agility, the initiative 3 can be a detriment if you're getting charged. And it's hard to use great weapons because your agility. Initiative 1, excuse me, I keep saying agility. Initiative 1. So it depends on what you're fighting, more or less. With the armor, it's going to be a survivable unit. It's going to last you a while. It could break a whole unit down. But besides that, it's more or less how you're going to use this. This is a unit that also, like, if you don't take the 1 in core for having a character, or if you just don't have the character in your lords, you got to question, why are you taking it in special, and how many are you taking in special? And I think you can only take 1 if you have a corresponding Blackwork character. So you can only take a Blackwork unit if you have a Blackwork character. All right. Orc mobs. Now this is basically combining both the savage orcs and the common orcs. Okay, the weapon skill is the same, 3. The strength is only 3, and then the initiative is 3. Basically everything else is the same as the black orcs except for the leadership. Leadership is 6. For some reason, excuse me. For some reason, the Orc Boss is a 7. So they basically gave, if you have a champion, you have a better leadership. Okay. You can take war bows. War bows are probably the worst bows because they have nothing special to them. They don't have any armor bane. They don't have anything extra except for the fact that they're 24 inches and they're bows. That's basically it. You can take additional hand weapons for 1 point per model. Thrusting spears, throwing spears for 1 point per model each. And then the entire unit can take shields. Okay, they are not motley crew, so you can't mix and match the weapons. So basically, what you take is what you take. Most people will probably take what they modeled on their miniatures, and yeah, any unit may get a standard bearer, musician, or boss. Standard bearer, you could get a. I don't even see it says you could take a magical banner. Huh, interesting. Wow. It doesn't say it. Let's see. You could upgrade to standard bearer. You get a boss with a magic item of 25 points. You could take Biggin rule. You could take Skirmisher rule. So the Biggin rule is an interesting one because it's going to increase their strength by 1. And I think it gives you something else randomly. Let's see. Biggin. I always misspell this when I look it up. All right, Biggins. All right. Oh, it gives you armor bane. That's what it is. So it gives you strength +1 and armor bane +1. It does not give you AP though. So okay. Yeah, I did not notice that you can't take a magical standard though. That's an interesting thing, and it actually changes a little bit on my list. 1 for 1,000 points. You could take a unit with frenzy and war paint. And frenzy is not tied to war paint. So if you don't want to spend the extra point in war paint, you don't have to, but you do get the frenzy for 1 point, and you would have to have the frenzy if you wanted the war paint. Frenzy is awesome. I know people are like, oh, but you have to automatically charge. It's fine. You know what I mean? Because you're getting that extra attack. You're gonna make a unit that's a blender unit. And if somebody like leads you the wrong way, you know what? They have to waste so many resources to lead you the wrong way. And if you have proper chaff, you could block off your guys from just frenzying off, okay? You can also take the big stabber, which mine is the big stabadon. It's the impact hits, D3 impact hits. It doesn't say it. It just says impact hits, so I'm assuming it's going to be strength 3 impact hits. That kind of hurts me right there. I don't know. All right. So let's see. You could take them in skirmish formation, which I think is interesting, especially if you got skirmishers with big stabbers. But even though you could take them in skirmish formation, it's really, I could see it like if you're going to take a unit of war bows, you just want some bows out there. They're relatively cheap to get 5 guys. That's the minimum size. Skirmish formation with bows, sure. Okay. Or even throwing spears. But if you want a big brick of savage orcs, I would suggest against the skirmish formation and go with, just spears and just let them go. I was going to mention there's an ambulance going by. I used to call that shy ambulances. But I am going to make a note of this. If you have a magical banner in the unit, be it a BSB, you could take the rampaging banner and you could charge in with the banner of butchery. The banner of butchery, and give your guys +1 strength on the charge. You could also give them the big raggedy red flag. There we go. Even though mine's yellow, you could take a red flag and basically give them +1 weapon skill and +1 to the combat resolution. All right. They also have choppas, so you get to reroll the ones on the wound. You have close order. You are regular infantry. You ignore goblin panics. If you're frenzied, you're just going to ignore most things anyways. Impetuous and warband. Okay. And like I said before, the warband rule gives you extra leadership per ranks. All right. Common goblins. You're going to have thrusting spears. I'm sorry, you don't have thrusting spears. They're leadership 5. They only have weapon skill 2. They're only strength 3. They're pretty common. They're slow in initiative 2. They have spears, they have bows, they have light armor, and they have you buy any of these for 1 point per each. They don't automatically start with them, but buying them for 1 point a piece, you could kind of custom make them. I tend to take like 5 to 10 of them, or you could only take 10 as a minimum unit, but I tend to take 10 of them for just short bows, so you have some light arm fire. But you could also include nasty skulkers. Nasty skulkers don't really have much punch to them for you to spend 30 points. 30 points is a lot of points, where you could get you could get a ruby ring that does more. You could also include units of skirmishers with them, which I would recommend on this, because you could take a unit of archers that skirmish around and you're not so tied down to being in formation and being so like close to everything. Since I haven't seen any objectives, I don't really see a scoring unit scenario where you would need these guys in ranks, other than you just want the rank bonuses to charge something and then challenge out. They do get a magical banner for 50 points. They do fear elves. They are close order. They are horde, which gives them an extra rank bonus for having ranks. And then they are impetuous and warband. Okay. The nasty skulkers, they do have armor bane 2. They do fear elves. They are initiative 4 with a skulking menace and strike first. So they're gonna pop out of the unit, strike first. They got 2 attacks apiece, and I think that's it. You put them in as a hidden unit in the unit of goblins. They pop out. You got 3 of them, so you got 6 attacks. Going to be weapon skill 4. Hopefully hit somebody and hopefully kill somebody. Armor bane 2 is basically all they have, though. Snotling mobs. These are just your swarms, relatively cheap, especially since they're coming out of core. You could take some cheap chaff. They are unbreakable. They're immune to psychology, and you could just kind of throw them out there. They come in at a starting size of a unit of 2. They're only 35 points, so 70 points, I think, for both. And that's it. They do Vanguard. Okay. Night Goblin mobs, basically same thing as the goblins, except the Night Goblin mobs have netters, and they can hide fanatics. They also have hatred to dwarves. So the Night Goblins do have a little bit more going for them. They do require you to have a Night Goblin character with them. But besides that, they do have the warband rule, so the more ranks you have, the better the leadership. And with the netters allow you to drop, let's see. Yeah, it drops, you roll a dice. On a 1, you net yourself, but on a 2 through 6, you're netting your opponent, and your opponent's strength will be, that's in base-to-base combat with that unit, is going to be lowered by 1. So that's a big deal. And then the fanatics, we'll go over that. Oh man, I'm not going to get through all of this. I'm going to have to go through it the next time. So guys, sorry about that. I'm going to go through the fanatics. I know where I'm at, but I have to go to work. And I'll be making the rest of this video coming up, part 2, coming up soon. So I could go into a little bit deeper dive into that and the magical items. We got fanatics, we got squigs, trolls, giants, Ragnaroks, all that stuff, and the magic items in part 2. And I hope you guys enjoy this in part 1. Any kind of feedback, I'd love to hear it. And if you guys have any thing you want to share about your Orc and Goblin army list that you have made so far, I would love to hear it. Just put it in the comment section below. All right, guys, till next time. Peace.